Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Happy Friday, Bart. How are you?
I'm good. How have your last 2 weeks been?
They've been busy. Things are picking up, which is always a good thing.
I'm ready for them to slow down just a little bit. This AI wave has really kind of crashed, right? I mean, not crashed, but it's like made things go crazy all over the place. But
Yep.
anyway, we'll see if we can demystify some of that in a little bit. But first, we have to start with the dad jokes. So, what do you got for us?
All right. So we just had a tropical storm come through the Gulf Coast here. So,
Yeah.
yeah, why do you need to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs outside?
Lots of reasons. Why?
Because you might step in a poodle.
The poodle, I love it. So mine is an equal groaner. So when you pack your lunch when you're headed to the beach, why do you need to make sure the banana is always under your umbrella?
This is an obscure one. I have no idea.
They peel so easily. Okay, okay. Let's get to the fun stuff, guys.
All right.
Starting off with Power Platform news, as always. So first things first, I thought this was a really good explanation of what has been changing in the new preview experience for Copilot Studio versus the classic experience and the big change in the orchestrator and why we're doing skills instead of topics and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm not going to just drain it, but that because the new model is chain of thought that's going to continuously try to evaluate, is it doing the right thing? Is it accomplishing the goals? Things like that, that there's kind of no deterministic place to inject anything like a topic anymore. And so that's why workflows did what they did so that they can still be that deterministic layer that you can put in since topics aren't going to be possible. But that new chain of thought orchestrator was so much more powerful and so much more modern than what people just expect out of building agents these days that we needed to make that move. So I thought that was actually really good. And I thought it was really nice too that the team has built, and I'll talk about this in just a minute. Well, might as well talk about it now. That the Power Cat team, or what they just call the Cat team now, has built skills for your coding agent to not only tell it how to build great classic Copilot Studio agents and build great new modern Copilot Studio agents with the new orchestrator, but are even smart enough using those skills to port a classic agent that did have topics into the new experience where it replaces those with workflows in the new agent model with some skills. And it's not 100% perfect, and it does have to re-architect things as it goes, but it's a great stepping stone to at least give you a migration path should you want to take advantage of the new capabilities of the new orchestrator. So great job, Cat team. Along with that, the Cat team has finally released their plugin for a coding tool for the Power Automate cloud flows. So it's now first party, able to construct those cloud flows, make them part of the solution, add all the things that it needs to publish them, all the things like that. So your coding agents just keep getting better and better. And I just talked about this, so I'm not even going to click through it. That the new, well, maybe I will. So the repository for the Copilot Studio plugin, or the skills for Copilot Studio that know both the classic and the new orchestrator and how to port one to the other, also has a really good explanation of how the new orchestrator works and a new mini site that you can load that just shows off how a lot of it works, that you can unpack and understand how things actually came together. And then talking about the plugin itself and doing the upgrade that's part of the plugin that talks about taking something from classic to new. So all of that fantastic stuff. The cat team's been super busy. Another thing that they have launched is a repository of skills, since skills are going to be a huge component of not only what's going on there in the new Copilot Studio Orchestrator, but skills are there for Cowork, and skills are there for Scout, and skills are there in GitHub Copilot, and skills are just kind of dropping in everywhere as the best way to give direction to your agents for specific things that it ought to be able to accomplish when it's going through its execution. So this is both a bunch of things that the CAT team has put together, and this is just an open source gallery. So they are taking things that people build outside of the CAT team that want to have a good place to host and make those discoverable. So you can contribute skills, you can search by contributors, that there's all kinds of good stuff to do in here to help find the right skills for your modern agents as you're building them. Link to Fabric has been a fantastic addition to the Dataverse analytics capability. Ever since Fabric came out, we had a way to do this. And Azure Synapse Analytics has continued to work reliably right alongside it. If you weren't quite ready to go whole hog with it, you could run them in parallel. Or if you were still working a lot in the Synapse Analytics workspaces, instead of moving all of your workloads to Fabric, just keep using the other. We're mainly announcing a UI change that in that left nav that it has always kind of been Synapse Analytics that has showed up over there, and you needed to click into it in order to manage that. That's going to change the name for what's there to start saying link data very soon instead of Azure Synapse Link. So just be aware that on that left nav, when you're in Power Apps, it's going to change to that. And from the link data area that you land in, when you click into it, you'll be able to create a Synapse link or create a Fabric link, either one from where that lands. Now, this is a big step forward because that Azure Synapse link before really only allowed you to work with the Azure Synapse setup that was there. You actually had to go over into the tables area, and that was totally non-intuitive if you wanted to establish a new link to Fabric. So this is just a great cleanup of the UI to make all that happen more straightforwardly and to give you better tools with where you land to manage whatever you have running. The last thing I'll just remind people is we have refreshed the capability of Link to Fabric to ratchet down the time that it takes from the time it commits operationally until it's available analytically to, just a few seconds. So it's a much, much, much quicker refresh than was there in the past to make that lakehouse even more close to a real-time repository to pull analytics from. So great stuff all around from that team. Last, well, certainly not last, the MCP server pool that is out there to be able to be added to any Copilot Studio agent is growing fairly rapidly. And that's a great thing because it's a super easy way to just add functionality to your agent without a whole lot of effort other than a couple of instructions, because all the tools and all the data access is all controlled by that MCP server. Well, especially when you start thinking about dynamic sales and what you can do with a lot of the fairly recent MCP servers that are available out there for sellers, that we now have MCPs for ZoomInfo and Dun & Bradstreet and LeadIQ and Draup and Gong and Enlift and HG Insights. So if any of those are tools that you have subscribed to and that would help your sellers, if you are using like the sales agent or the agent for opportunity management or sort of any of those things, the sales qualification agent, any of those that are doing things for your sellers, you can just add that MCP server and a few instructions to tell the agent to go look for ZoomInfo information or go look for Dun & Bradstreet information along with what it's finding in Dataverse directly to add capabilities to what that agent will do on behalf of your sellers. So nice updates there in bringing more and more things to the easy button realm to enrich what we ship out of the box. Another nice new feature in the Power Platform is if you work with Power Pages regularly, one of the most important things is making sure your Power Pages are developed in a secure way, especially if you end up doing any data sharing through those pages. And there is now an agent under the security tab of the Maker portal that allows you to just use natural language to set up the security model, to adjust the security model, to review your site for any things that it might find that you ought to change once you've thought you've got it configured right. Just all sorts of stuff you can do in that agentic realm now to make sure that your Power Pages have been secured appropriately. Great stuff. That's just there now. Last thing I'll throw out there is it has been a pain in a lot of people's side for quite a while in the classic Copilot Studio Orchestrator, trying to work with file attachments and understanding when a person tries to upload a file to a Copilot Studio agent, how to interact with that file, how to retrieve it, how to do other things with it. Because when you tried to just throw things into the tools area to interact with that file, you usually were disappointed in what happened. So this is a blog post that gives you a lot of hints in terms of how to capture those files in a topic and then how to reuse the data that has been stored in that topic wherever you need it from that point forward. That's not going to work in the new experience, but this is fantastic for those of you who are still working in the classic experience, especially since the preview one, I believe, is still in preview. And once it leaves preview and is generally available with the new orchestrator, then we'll be porting these kinds of functionalities over for production workloads. So anyway, good stuff. So that's all I had on the Power Platform side of things. Last couple things are customer engagement specific, and the Service Copilot agent that just shows up now in M365 Copilot and even in CoWork is one that we have added quite a little bit of capability to, and it is fully generally available. And most people are going to say, well, but you've had a service agent for quite some time. True. But the new version that was just released recently has quite a few new capabilities that it not only did everything that the existing one used to, but now also reasons and acts, not just assists and answers and summarizes. It is both in CRM and in all of the other apps where M365 can live if you've got the M365 Copilot license. So Teams and Outlook and M365 everywhere. It's grounded not just in Dataverse data, the way the old service agent was, but it also looks across the WorkIQ infrastructure to find helpful information there. And of course, this is a Copilot Studio agent, so bring it and have it live wherever you want it to. So it is really nice. And there's also some nicer things that they're also looking to do in the next rev, whenever that next rev comes out, for more and more pre-built functionality. So take advantage. And then just a reminder of how important customer insights could be to your overarching customer experience delivery, because it can be that single pane of glass that helps not only bring all that customer data, not only from what you're doing in Dynamics, but what you're doing in lots and lots of other places on websites, in ERP apps, in all sorts of surveys and other things that you might be bringing customer data together that might not live currently in Dynamics. It will help you synthesize all that so that it is usable by the MCP servers that show up everywhere that have customer insight needed in order to do their job well, to surface insights or even take action with customer data in context. But you also are going to want to have that journey orchestrator working full time to make sure that if there are things it can be doing to actually do a digital interaction with your customer that's going to be helpful in moving the demand into a more close to buy situation, or in helping solve a customer service scenario with better quality communication, or whatever else the case may be, that this journey orchestrator has been plussed up in quite a few ways. That we now have an agent that will help you create and maintain those journeys. Within a journey, it will help look at the data out there to figure out when is the exact right moment to do the outreach in order to be the most successful outreach it can be for that touch point. And then to look at the actual MCP server that can coordinate across the entire platform to do all kinds of things, and that will help make that headless, so that that can be an interesting way to surface the things like your privacy checks and other opt-in scenarios where customers have given consent for things, because all of that kind of lives in the customer insights platform if you're using it. If you let that MCP server be out there, it can be checking consent and other channel information along the way that you may need to interact with the customer in whatever way is desired. So lots of good stuff that has been built in there. Just thought it was worth a highlight. So that is, from my standpoint, what is new in the customer experience platform, along with all of the things in Power Platform. So let's head over to HR and ERP land, Lauren.
Perfect. So starting out here, let's see, coming to GA in September with Commerce is linking pricing decisions to demand forecasts. So unified pricing management is now going to provide out-of-the-box integration with demand planning in D365. So when you create or update prices or promotions in unified pricing management, these changes are automatically going to synchronize with demand planning. So users no longer have to use custom connectors or manual data handoffs. These changes can be incorporated as input signals when building and refining your demand forecasts. Then next year we have some updates in BC. So first off, coming to GA in August is improving the PO matching functionality in the payables agent. This is going to improve matching quality with the agent and aligns draft finalization behavior with existing positioning controls. So you'll see the PO lines list page used by the agent during matching is going to be enriched with additional fields like line amount, which enables matching on value, not just the description and quantity. And this is really valuable for service lines where quantity is really not a meaningful discriminator. And then there's also you'll see updates on the expected receipt date line, which enables the agent to factor in timing when multiple PO lines could match there. The agent's also now going to respect the app's never block draft finalization setting and the receipt on invoice field on POs as well. So the agent is not going to block draft finalization because a matched PO isn't yet marked as received. So whether goods are received is a posting time control, not a draft time control. And then also coming to GA in August is the ability to speed up processing with known senders in the payable agent. So this feature is going to introduce email review policy and a known senders list page to give AP teams more control over which incoming emails need human approval before that agent processes them. So a new email review field is going to exist in the payables agent, which lets admins choose when incoming emails require that approval. It could be always, it could be never, or only if untrusted, which is the recommended setting here, where only emails from senders who aren't on the list of known senders are going to require review. And then let's see, coming to GA in September also. Let's see what I've got next here. Project Ops. So next is the ability to assign task level calendars for precise planning. So with project level calendars, every task follows the same schedule, even when timing needs differ. That's the current state, which often means extra work, inaccurate plans. So now with this update that's coming to GA in September, task level calendars change so that now you can assign a unique calendar to each task, which means more control over working hours and timelines. And this combined with task level schedule mode, users can decide what adjusts the effort, the duration, or units while still setting custom hours for each task. And then coming to GA in August with Project Ops is the ability to configure minimum interval of time entry duration. So customers can now configure the allowable increment for time entry durations to ensure that all logged time adheres to their organization's time tracking policies. So when this is enabled, you can only create or modify time entries whose duration is a multiple of the configured value. For example, 15 minutes or an hour. This is really going to help prevent erroneous or non-compliant time entries from being recorded here. And then coming to GA in September, also in Project Ops, is the ability to assign task level schedule mode for more precise planning. Traditional scheduling, you're really stuck using one mode for the entire project, even when tasks have different needs. That limitation really adds extra work. It leads to plans that don't really match your reality. So task level schedule mode is going to change that by enabling users to pick the right mode for each particular task, no matter what the project default is. And then scrolling down here, finance and supply chain. We've only got one update in core financials. Coming to GA in September is improved performance for selecting bridge transactions during the bank clearing process. So during the bank clearance process, D365 retrieves and presents the bridge transactions that are available to be cleared. But for organizations that have huge volumes of transactions, selecting these could be slow, which delays the clearance experience, adds time to period end reconciliation. This feature coming out is going to optimize how those bridge transactions are queried and selected during bank clearance. So the list will actually load and respond more quickly, even when a large number of transactions are involved. So even as transaction volume grows, finance teams can still maintain a really responsive experience here. And then last, moving over to supply chain, coming to GA in October is the ability to understand forecast accuracy with AI explanations. So with this, users are going to get a clear view of historical data alongside a calculated forecast that's supported by AI-generated explanations. So it's really going to enhance planners' understanding of each forecast, build more confidence in those results it's churning out, and a much better planning decision. Get a detailed understanding of the key factors influencing each forecast rather than simply just viewing those numbers. So, just a couple things to point out. Users will be able to see symmetric mean absolute percentage error values, view historical data and forecast results in one place, and then really understand forecast drivers through those AI-generated explanations. Then coming to GA in September is the ability to enforce same batch selection for raw materials in production and batch orders. This is going to help ensure consistent product quality and traceability by preventing mixed batch consumption. This really is going to help reduce compliance risk and overall simplify production control when it comes to batch management. It ensures that raw materials consumed by production orders and batch orders are all coming from the same batch. Process and discrete manufacturers can use it together with related production control capabilities that are going to govern how raw materials are allocated to a production order. So product designers and production engineers can set the same batch requirement at the product level so that it applies by default everywhere that item is consumed. And then future versions are expected to introduce additional capabilities to further enhance same batch raw materials, such as same batch enforcement during master planning allocation, and also execution validation to ensure that same batch requirements are actually validated during picking and consumption for production. And then I'm a little bit behind on this one. I just caught up this week about the new impact analysis with the D365 procurement agent in supply chain. So this is a newer AI capability that helps procurement teams understand the downstream consequences of supplier changes before actually accepting them. So, today buyers often manually analyze delays or quantity reductions or delivery changes by tracing impacts, which is process. So instead, this agent really automates that work by detecting any PO changes that are driven by the supplier, evaluating what those downstream effects are on your inventory, your production, your sales order, any transfers and projects as well. This agent will identify stockouts, any sort of inventory risks, and then classify those changes as no impact or has impact, and then provide AI-generated summaries and recommendations so buyers can actually make informed decisions faster. This can be triggered via the supplier communications agent, where the supplier sends an email and send out a structured change request, or it can be done via the vendor collaboration portal, where a supplier submits changes directly through the portal, and then the agent can evaluate that request automatically, or manually, where procurement users can run what if scenarios without supplier involvement. For example, they could ask, what happens if this PO is delayed 2 weeks? What if it drops by 20%? What if we expedite a shipment? This is really useful for risk planning as well as negotiation. So the what if thing is really exciting in my opinion. It can evaluate impacted orders by using pegging relationships, inventory markings, master planning relationships, your BOMs, and traverse your BOMs to identify those downstream effects. Can also look at projected inventory as well. And also, you can choose the job frequency you want for this. So you can choose how often new change requests are analyzed. Example, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, hour. And the availability, this is still in production-ready public preview and in D365 10.0.48, and the GA 8 is still TBD. But the value here isn't, with the supplier communications agent in tandem, it's not just writing emails. The value is really automatically understanding which changes are going to result in misproduction and inventory shortages, any sort of delayed customer commitments before those disruptions occur. So, for example, when a supplier tells you they're late or reducing quantity, buyers typically have to manually figure out whether that matters and what's going to be impacted. But the agent does this automatically, and it traces that impact throughout the supply chain, your inventory, your production orders, your sales orders, your project, your BOMs, and then the buyer can really see exactly what the risk is so they can make better and faster decisions. So this one I'm very excited about as a supply chain solutions engineer, rather. So that's all I have for today. Some exciting updates.
It's a never-ending stream of cool stuff coming our way, right? That's why we have the show.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Hope you have a great couple of weeks, and I think we'll see you and everybody else in a fortnight.
Likewise. Thanks, Bart.